Yo, today is August 14th, 2023, and I wanted to take a look at the GFS models for, the past four runs. Oh, I guess they don't have. I don't know why they remove it, but okay. So we'll look at the most recent runs. It doesn't have the 0Z anymore. Uh, Maybe there's a way to look back at it. I know that you can look at the older radar data, but anyway. So again, as you can see, there is a hurricane that is rather large and looks like it's pretty powerful according to the model, that develops off the western coast of Mexico and then travels northwest towards Los Angeles and San Diego, basically making, in this run, it's dragging along the coastline up Baja California, as it moves north and west, and you can see that there's a lot of like tropical storm moisture and activity that filters north as it does that. And this one, um, the past few runs have been a little different. The 0Z actually has it, like the one that I can't pull up anymore. What's weird is I could just pull it up, like, last time I was checking these. But I guess they only put up three at a time. Anyway, okay, whatever. So we'll go look. Here's the 12Z. Past couple days, I think we've looked at the 12Z, but here it is. You can see that in this run, in the 12Z run, it does not uh, really make a landfall. It kind of, skims the coast of Baja California and then hooks west and goes off to sea or ocean, goes off into the Pacific. And then again, you do see development of something later, but this is in fantasy land hours. Uh, when it's so far away on the model, it's hard to count it as accurate. Anyway, so here's the 6Z, and similarly, it drags along and goes off into the Pacific. The 0Z actually had it much closer to what the 18Z had, um, or has. So the 18Z, it doesn't hook off into the ocean until later, and so you do actually see a lot of the moisture, and a lot of the tropical activity over the Southern California area. And so when I say that, I mean specifically Los Angeles and San Diego, being that Los Angeles is like the second largest city in the U.S., and then San Diego is pretty large too. And so, um, and this is also, again, I'm bringing this up. I'm like making these because it's not common that hurricanes uh, are a problem for Southern California. Like they might get some moisture sometimes. Earlier, Eugene kind of like hooked off into the ocean, and then whatever wind and patterns was going on in the weather here, like carried it up into like the remnants, and only a small portion of the remnants up into uh, over here by Lompoc and um, Santa Barbara and up along this area. But this actually, as you see with the 18Z, this isn't even like I said. Really, it's not a direct landfall, though. It's as close as it's about as close as it can be without making a landfall. Like the western, the bands of it are pretty much the whole time, scraping across the coastline here. So it would indicate like this is not normal, I would say, for a large hurricane to develop and almost make a beeline towards Los Angeles. And as we move forward, as I've said, I'm going to continue looking at the models, um, and we'll keep looking, but it's just not common. It's not like a normal. You don't see a lot of hurricanes in the Southern California area, or at least I haven't within my lifetime. So um, the fact that this one, again, the models basically show it like developing and making a beeline towards Los Angeles. While it doesn't make a direct landfall, it is even in these, or at least in the 18Z as compared to the previous two, it does, scrape along the coast where there's enough that it's like this is probably more from a hurricane than LA or San Diego has received in a while. So um, I do think probably if we continue to see this model play out like this, and it does something similar to this, it would be a pretty major news story. Because again, uh, hurricanes in Los Angeles are not common. So uh, yeah, let's see. That's really all I have to add. Additionally, I guess in one of the runs, maybe it's the 12 Z. Yeah, let's see it. Yeah, at the end of this one, you notice they're again in fantasy hours where it's like, well, the model has to take in so many things, so many variables that earlier on in the modeling, like this far in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about this many days in, you can say it's pretty accurate, but past this point, it starts getting less and less accurate. And let's see, I'd say about somewhere in here is where it like halfway through the run. I would say it's like anything past that point is just you have no like you don't know. But you can see that when it's in the far fantasy hours here, that it has a hurricane developing off in the Gulf of Mexico, and like very rapidly developing, and then moving through Louisiana and kind of. I guess we might get some of it here in Houston, but again, uh, it doesn't even like this isn't how it plays out even in the 18Z. That is one of the reasons why I made these, because multiple runs in a row had this disturbance developing as a very large, and I think that's a pretty powerful hurricane what it's suggesting. So or it looks to be. I mean, it's not. We don't really have. Again, it's like a lot of variables for the models to take in. And as I said, I think the better that computers get, and the more you see AI looking at what variables it might be able to look at and account for, and that humans haven't maybe identified, but the AI could do it. I think a bit better in the sense, like I think humans can notice these things, but when you have AI with enough processing power, um, I think it'll just figure out the things that are most likely, and you're going to have way more advanced models come up as that happens, and models that are way more accurate out to longer distances. But at the same time, I also think because it's something where like little variables can affect large. It's like the butterfly effect, right? Where like a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the world can cause a hurricane in the other. Okay, well that's I guess that's the idea. Okay, well any small variable could affect the whole thing, the whole system, and I think it's still something to figure out what those might be and be able to actually identify that kind of stuff and maybe make models that adjust for it. But anyway, this is going to be the end of this video looking at the 18Z, the 12Z, and the 6Z. I wish I could have shown the 0Z, but I didn't realize it was just going to disappear. But what the 0Z had actually, in fact, I'll just really quick. If this was the 0Z, basically what it had happening was, it would develop here, and then it was a lot closer to the coastline, and then about here it starts moving up, and you had a much more like basically the whole system moved into Southern California and over Southern California. So it made a Baja California um, landfall, and then all of it like moved basically. I mean, what was still spinning, uh, you know, runs over top of Southern California. So, you know, San Diego and Los Angeles. So two of the runs today, basically, I'm looking at the 18Z and the 0Z. Both of them seem to still indicate that this is like a major hurricane that is gonna affect Southern California, specifically Los Angeles and San Diego. And then, you know, as I showed earlier, the 6Z has it going off to sea, but I think even with these, you still get considerable like moisture and tropical. So like with this one, you get it massive, like pretty massively going into Arizona for a little while. Like, I mean, I say massively, but it's just like a lot of moisture over Arizona. It kind of kicks up the stuff that would, I guess, be off the mountains here in Mexico, and it moves over Arizona, and then a little bit over Southern California. But I just expect that the number of model runs that have shown something developing and doing something pretty similar um, repeatedly makes it seem to me like this is more likely to happen than not happen. That a hurricane, like a major hurricane, does develop and heads towards Southern California, aka Los Angeles and San Diego. So I don't really have anything else to add. I am putting these up on YouTube. Um, I haven't really seen like a lot of the YouTube weather people seem to be kind of um, some of them have brought it up, and at least one other who's very prominent hasn't or didn't bring it up in his most recent video. We'll see if people actually start looking at it again. People seem to be pretty focused on like the news outlets seem to be pretty focused on uh, what's going on in Hawaii, which again, it does seem like there's some underreporting of casualties and some of the destruction going on there. And if it's not news covering kind of the devastation that's gone on in Hawaii, it's they're just looking at mainland U.S. Stuff, or like I watched someone cover the Atlantic region earlier today, but they didn't talk at all about this major hurricane that seems to develop in the Pacific and head towards California. And it's like maybe it's just because normally there is like that's not a thing, and like something that develops in the Pacific usually just goes off and towards maybe Hawaii and into the Pacific, whereas for once it looks like it's actually going to affect the western, like the West Coast, and so like it could be in a pretty major, significant way. And so, but since that's not the norm, it's usually the East Coast that and the third coast, Gulf Coast, that people are, or the Caribbean, whatever. You see that it's like stuff um, coming off of Africa, developing there in the Atlantic, and then moving towards the U.S. And so that's still where people are looking at. But I do think that if you continue to see model runs where this major hurricane is like, you know, heading at all towards Southern Cal, eventually people will start talking about it. So, and it to me, it looks like there's been enough model runs that it happens. It just seems like it seems like, to be honest, appropriate for what just everything going on around whatever that something like this would spawn up again. It does seem like people are like you can literally see me here's something else. You can see me on recording like multiple times. I've put up a compilation video of like one of the lightning trigger things that I do. I could do multiple more with lots more content, but if you go through the lightning lab stuff, it seems pretty obvious. Like I'm triggering lightning instances, lightning strikes, whatever. I'm triggering lightning activity that you see. Like there is lightning activity going on, but there does very clearly seem to be a repeated patterning of me dealing with this stuff. And that might inform someone who's actually thinking that, like, if there's this obvious of a thing, when I'm talking about the butterfly effect, like, oh, it's a butterfly flapping its wings. Probably if there's a guy in Houston that has any ability, whether consciously or unconsciously, to affect the weather, and it does seem that when people are fucking with me, the weather seems to be way more extreme and cause problems for people. At some point, you might expect people uh, to say, like, well, we should probably not let this person be messed with in a way that, first of all, is just messed up anyway, but it's also like, it does look like this is probably the guy from the book of Revelation who conquers at the seven churches of Asia and is given the gifts of those churches, which culminates at the end with, hey, this guy is sat on the throne of Yahweh, or the throne of Jesus, and probably, based on the other gifts and just what you can see Jesus and just anybody inspired by the spirit of Yahweh can do, it might be reasonable to just, I don't know, work with me instead of against me uh, on stuff, but that's just me using my brain. So, considering that people don't generally want to do that, I mean, I guess I'll just keep trying to use mine to to like engage this situation in a way that actually fixes something. But whatever, you can believe what you want or not. I mean, I do think at a certain point you're just denying reality, and I think we've already passed that point. Considering like I'm pretty damn clearly triggering lightning strikes in numerous videos at this point. But whatever, whatever. At a certain point, it'll be undeniable, and I just think that probably for people's own sake, engage what you can see with your eyes, which is very clearly. I mean, I'm not gonna fall for, oh, it's just a coincidence, but I guess some people might, and so you can turn off your brain and be those kinds of people. Anyway, whatever. Have a blessed one. Later. Yeah.